Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about modern novel and modern novelist, and this is your lecture number 25, and the class is History of English Literature, ComSat's Virtual Campus, Islamabad. My dear students, previously I gave you a briefing about modern period in the history of English literature. Then we talked about some of the dramatists and the poets in that era. So I told you, like, in the Victorian era, novel was on the very top position at that time. It got the standards of life, like the true depiction of the Victorian society during that era. So my dear students, here today we'll talk about how novel was developing with the passage of time. Either it has the same position as it had in the Victorian age or not. So we'll focus on some of the works of the modern novelists as well today. Okay, so trends in the modern novel. Okay, by keeping in view the trends in the modern poetry and in the modern drama, here my dear students, we are going to talk about some of the trends of the modern novel. Okay, so my dear students, here you could see, like, by the end of the Victorian age, novel was on a very top position, and it got immense popularity. Okay, it has eclipsed the poetry and the drama. So here we are talking about the Victorian era, okay, because it was on the dominating position as compared to drama and poetry during the Victorian age. Okay, it is the only literary form which has competed successfully with the radio and the cinema, and it is in this genre that work of the greatest merit is being produced. So my dear student, it was the only literary genre at that time who competed with the music and the cinema of that time. Okay, the films which were being picturized during that time, and it diverted the attention of the people to move towards novel as compared to music and cinema of that time. Myriads of novels pour out of the press practically every day and are received by the public with enthusiasm. So people, they were very much inclined towards reading novel, because novel was written in very easy language at that time, and it was very much easy for people who were even less educated at that time to read out the novels as compared to drama or poetry at that time. So that was one of the reasons, like, people, they were very much inclined towards reading the novel as compared to poetry or drama. Okay, so my dear students, like, public, if we talk about the public of that time, I told you, like, during the Victorian era, education was being promoted to the lower classes of the society as well. Okay, people could at least read and write. So okay, my dear students, women at homes, even they started reading the novels, and because that was there was chaos, frustration in the society a lot. So people, they gave too much importance to reading the novels in order to get rid from that frustration and the hustle and bustle in that society. So my dear students, here you could see, like, the trends which were being followed during the Victorian era. So we'll going with the same trends here in the modern novel as well, and the modern period started right after the Victorian era. Okay, this immense popularity may be accounted for by the fact that while compression in the characteristic features both of the poetry and the drama, the modern man, under the influence of science, requires discussion, clarification and analysis. This is possible only in the novel, and hence the preference for it. So my dear students, at that time, you could see, like, that was a modern age, and that was an age of science and technology as well. So there were certain questions in the minds of human beings at that time, so they need the answers and the clarification of all those questions. So novel was the best choice at that time. Why? Because in order to clarify something, in order to answer something, so it was very much necessary to have novels that time. Okay, and here you can say, like, that is one of the characteristic feature of the novel as well. Like, it was about modern man of the society, and novelists, they focused on the human natures and human characters during that time. Okay, so in order to analyze something, people, they started reading novels. Okay, because everything was there in written form in front of them, so they could read it and they could analyze it as well. So novel was again on the peak in the modern era as well. Okay, and people, they started giving preferences to novels as well as going into the cinema, or you can say listen to the music. So here we could see, like, there was a certain shift shift from other genres of literature to the novels in the Victorian age and ultimately in the modern era as well. Okay, so basically this is just to tell you the background of the modern novel. Okay, another prominent feature of the modern English novel is its immense variety and complexity. Novels are being written practically on all possible themes and subjects. A number of different trends are to be noticed. There are the traditionalists like H.G. Wells, Arnold Bennett and Galsworthy, who, while they propound new ideas and open out new vistas to the human mind, still follow the Victorian tradition as far as the technique of the novel is concerned. So my dear students, here you can see like the repetition of the Victorian era and the themes and the subjects of that era which were present over there in order to present that hypocritical society in their novel. So you can see like the trends are being repeated over here once again. Okay, my dear students, here you could see like a modern novel is comprised of immense variety and complexity as well, because as you know, like when we were talking about English poetry in the modern era, so when we focused on T.S. Eliot's work, so you could see like a immense variety was there, and complexity is also there that was full of illusions, because according to him, like modern life is not much easy to understand and to cope up with the modern trends. That is why he used very complex language in his writing. Okay, and we focused on his point, that is the wasteland. Okay, my dear students, here we are on novels. So again the same tradition which was there in another genre of literature, that is poetry. So my dear students, we are focusing on the complexity and immense variety of themes in the English novels over here in the modern era. Okay, here you could see some of the novelists, the eminent novelists like who were basically the traditionalists during that era, like H.G. Wells. Okay, like H.G. Wells, Arnold Bennett and Galsworthy. Okay, basically they they still used to follow the Victorian traditions as far as the technique of novel writing was concerned. So my dear students, here you could see like the names of the three novelists who were using the same tradition as Victorian novelists they used to have, okay, during that era. Okay, my dear students, like this is another prominent feature of the novel during the modern era. Okay, so dear students, like at that time novels were basically written about all the themes and the subject matters and the issues of the society. So here that is why it is very much difficult to analyze a modern novel and modern poetry as well, because too many things were going on. There was a revolution as far as industry is concerned, scientific innovations were there, too many explorations were there. So fine. So according to the novelists, poets and the dramatists of that era, they used to think that is a very complex life. Okay, so they depicted that life in their writing. So that is one of the characteristics of that era. Fine. So variety of themes were there and variety of subject matters were also there. It was not like they just restricted to domestic novels or to the external world only. Their novels are based on household things, on external world issues, on political issues, social issues and internal world of human beings as well. Okay, like we talked about the stream of consciousness novels as well. Okay, dear students, will focus on stream of consciousness once more in today's lecture as well, because that is a very important theme. Okay, on the other hand, there are innovators like Henry James, Joseph Conrad, James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, who had revolutionized the technique of the novel. So basically previously I told you three names who were using the same traditions as Victorian novelists they used to have. So my dear students, here I'm telling you four more names who revolutionized the English novel during the modern era. Okay, so with their probing into the subconscious, so basically they added subconscious as well in their writings. Okay, while H.G. Wells fully exploits modern science in his scientific romances, novelists of social reform like Galsworthy make the novel form a vehicle for the discussion of the baffling socio-economic problems of the day. So dear students, here this is a commentary on H.G. Wells novels as well. Okay, my dear students, he was totally against the modern science, and you can see the element of his, you can say, hatred against the modern science in his scientific romances. Okay, so basically when we talk about the novelists of social reform like Galsworthy, he made the novel form a vehicle for the discussion of baffling socio-economical problems of the day. So according to Galsworthy, like that was just a medium through which you can convey your feelings, your ideas, or the problems which you are facing as far as, you know, socio-economical issues of the country are you know, concerned. So my dear students, this is basically the difference between the two traditions which were being used you know, in the modern novel. Okay, some of them, they were using the Victorian you know, trends and the fashions of writing a novel, and many of them, they revolutionized the English novel by keeping in view the subconsciousness and a mode of expression through which you can express your feelings, your problems, and you know, this is a kind of discussion about the socio-economical issues of the country. Okay, biographical novels, original novels, satirical novels, sea novel, detective novels, war novels, and novels of humor like those of P.J. Wodehouse continue to flood the market, and the list is by no means exhaustive. So here, my dear students, you can see different kinds of novels which were there in the market at that time during the modern era. So you have biographical novels, those novels which are about you know, the lives of other people. Okay, and then the regional novels, those are which are specifically about, you know, any particular region. Okay, and then the satirical novel, for example, any you know, satire on the society, saying you know, something in terms of any other thing. Okay, so this is basically a very much common tradition in the Victorian era as well as in the modern era. Okay, and the sea novels as well, like based on, you can say, the description of the sea or any incident which happened on the sea. Okay, and detective and war novels and novels of humor. So basically here you can see the variety of novels were there. Some of them, they are satirical, some of them, they are based on the bitter experiences you know, of the novelist about the war, and then the novels of humor, they were also there. Okay, like those of P.J. Wodehouse continue to flood the market. So basically, my dear students, here the point is that again novel was on a very top of position over here in the modern era as well, and there was a variety of novels. So people, they were not just restricted to any particular theme. Lot of you know, subject matters were there, lot of themes, plus you know, lot of writing styles. So my dear students, variation in style and variation in themes, it attracted the public a lot during that era. Okay, so basically these are the characteristics of the novel during the modern era in the history of English literature. Okay, the modern novel is realistic again by keeping in view the, you know, modern drama and modern poetry. Here novels are also very much realistic. They are not based on, you know, any such kind of imagination which is very much difficult to understand. They are based on realistic, the factors in the society, the problems of the people in the society. Okay, so they depict, basically these novels depict the real picture of the society and the you know, real background of the people as well. Okay, it deals with all the facts of contemporary life, as I told you, the pleasant as well as the unpleasant. So some of the, you know, things which were very much good in the society, these novels, they highlighted those things, as well as the unpleasant things, for example, warlike events. Okay, the beautiful as well as the ugly, and does not present merely a one-sided view of life. So previously, when we were dealing with you know, romanticism in the history of English literature, so we focused on one thing, like people, they talked about romance, about nature, about life more. Okay, so here you could see like this is a balanced approach towards novels over here in the modern era. My dear students, you could see like they did not just go for the one side image of the picture. They captured all the things, so they were being critical at times as well. Okay, Life is presented with detached accuracy regardless of moral or ideological consideration. So basically this is all about life experiences, about society, the contemporary society of that time. So my dear students, by keeping in view all these points, you'll have to analyze the novels of that very era. So what was basically going on during that era, what kind of people we had at that time, and what were the literary trends. Okay, so most of the modern novels, they are based on realism. Okay, the woes and suffering of the poor, their misery and wretchedness, as well as the good in them, their sense of social solidarity, their fellow feeling and sympathy, and are realistically presented. So my dear students, this is not about the woes and suffering of the people only, like the sense of social solidarity was also there, and the feeling of sympathy. So here again I'm coming to the previous point, like they covered all the sides of human life in their novel. So they were not towards the good things only, like the romantics they used to have, or the bad points like the Victorians they used to have. Okay, my dear students, Joseph Conrad makes realism the basis even of his romantic tales. So basically when we talk about romance or romanticism in the history of English literature, so that is usually fantasy, and that is based on imagination. So here in the modern era you could see like the tales, the romantic tales, even they were based on realism. Okay, they were not a product of imagination, of fiction, or of fantasy only. So my dear students, here you could see like the combination, or the mixture of romance with the realism. Okay, the modern age is an era of disintegration and interrogation. Okay, my dear students, this is an age of integration, like they did not mix too many elements together in the novels. Okay, although there was too many subject matters over there. Okay, and interrogation, that was an age of interrogation, because there were too many questions in the minds of those people at that time, like about science, about technology, what was going on, because that is known as the modern era as well. So in order to analyze those questions and to answer those questions, it was very much essential to produce novels at that time. So that was an age of interrogation, it was an age of disintegration as well. So my dear students, those old values, traditional values, were not replaced by new ones. Man is today caught with two worlds, the one dying, the other seeking to be born. So here this is like after the death of one world of the traditional values, there wasn't any new world. They were wishing to have the new one, or they were seeking to have the new one, or they were seeking to be born. Okay, the choice between capitalism and communism, science and religion, God and the atom bomb is a difficult one, and the result is that man is baffled and confused. So my dear students, here you could see like capitalism and communism, like what is right, what is wrong. So man of that time was confused. Okay, science and religion, either we should go for science or we should pick up religion. Okay, so it was that is why I am telling you again and again, like it was a very complicated life. There were too many questions in the minds of a modern man. So basically it was very much difficult for the people to understand which one is the right choice, okay, or which one they had to go for at that time. Okay, capitalism or communism, science or religion, either they should believe on science or on religion at that time. God and the atom bomb, fine. So basically due to the influence of the wars during that era, so you could see like people were confused either to believe on God or on the atom bomb, okay, in order to destroy humanity, or where is God at that time, fine. So basically they were quite confused and frustrated due to these concepts in their minds. Okay, the modern novel presents realistically the doubts, the conflicts and the frustrations of the modern world. It is therefore pessimistic in nature, fine, or in tone. So dear students, they are as you could see, like the elements of realism are visibly present in the modern novels. Okay, as you could see, like there were certain conflicts and frustrations in the minds of the people at that time. They were quite interrogative, like they wanted to get the answers of certain questions in their minds, as I told you, certain things. Okay, so my dear students, the modern novel is a true depiction of the society. So here you could see like it represented the conflicts and the frustrations of that time as well. Okay, so most of the novel, when you read those novels, so you'll see the pessimistic approach over there, or quite a negative approach there, that there is no hope, okay, for your life. So my dear students, there wasn't any hope in the novels. Okay, so here you could see like their tone is quite negative, and that is quite depressive as well, due to the confused you can say mentality of the man at that time. People, they were quite frustrated, and they were confused what to do and what not to, okay, or what to follow and what not to follow during that era. All right. There is large-scale criticism, even condemnation of contemporary values and civilization. E.M. Forster is undisguised in his attack on the business mind and the worship of bigness in industrialized England of the post-war generation. So dear students, here you can see like he was basically undisguised, okay, or you could see like he was very much against the industrial revolution and the scientific evolution in the world, and plus you could see like the post-war generation. So my dear students, in his writings you could see the elements of war are very much present. Okay, so that was basically the subject area of most of the novelists of that time. Okay. Aldous Huxley analyzes the disease of modern civilization and searches for a cure. So basically, when you read, his works, okay, Aldous Huxley's work, so you will see like that is an analysis of the disease of modern civilization. So here you could see like we have used the metaphor of disease for modern civilization. So here, my dear students, focus of my discussion today is that like how almost all the novelists of that era, they were against scientific inventions. They were against, you could see, technology of that time, plus the post-war events, okay, the post-war effects you could see over here in their novels as well. Okay, and Connor's novels are all pessimistic and tragic. So this is the name of another novelist, Conrad. So you could see his novels are quite pessimistic and tragic as well, because of certain situations which were going on there in England at that time. All right. Realism in modern novel. So my dear students, here you could see like when we were dealing with poetry and the dramas of the modern era, so you could see the element of realism are quite present over there. Okay, so same is the case with the modern novel. So the realism of the modern novel is somewhere seen to better advantage than in the treatment of sex. So my dear students, this is we are talking about in modern novel here. So you could see like that those novels are based on realism, and you could see the examples of the contemporary society of that time in this work, that is the treatment of sex. The novel has entirely broken free from the Victorian inhibition of sex. So basically this is you can say entirely a new tradition, like the Victorians, what they used to have during their era in the society. So this is basically a kind of inhibition of you can say that Victorian era. Okay, there is a frank and free treatment of the problems of love, sex and marriage. So my dear students, here the topic of discussion is novel. So you could see different themes like love, sex and marriage here in most of the novels as well. Sex both within marriage and outside marriage is a common theme of the novelist society. My dear students, there were certain issues which were going on or which were taking place during the modern era. So you can see like this is also one of the important element of the novels during the modern era. Okay, so here you could see like the topic or the subject matter of the novels here, like this sex both with marriage and outside marriage. So this is with your legal relationship, along with the outside marriage means like your illegal relation or extramarital relation. So that was a problem of the modern era at that time. So here, while analyzing the novels of the modern era, you could see all these elements present here in their writing. So my dear students, this is the realism, like the true picture of the society was there. Okay, there wasn't any imagination, or they didn't talk about any other world, okay, which is not present there in the English society at that time. So this realism movement that has a very important impact on the modern era. Why? Because they used to highlight the sins from their society. Okay, what is basically happening during that society. So I highlighted some of the problems over here. They talked about the post-war impacts. They talked about certain other issues like the problem of sex, love, and marriages as well in their novels. So, okay, so these were the hot topics at that time. Okay. The theories of psychologists like Freud and Havelock Ellis, new biological theories and methods of birth control, and the boredom, frustration, and brutality caused by the war go far to explain the preoccupation of the contemporary novel with sex themes. So basically, this is one of the themes of you could see the modern novel. Okay, like there were certain issues which were going on, like different psychologists, they gave different theories in that era, like Freud and Havelock Ellis, like they were the psychologists and they presented certain theories, like new biological theories which were going on during that era, and the methods of birth control. So for the very first time, the methods of birth control were being introduced during that era, and the boredom, frustration, and brutality caused by the war. So there are here we are talking about post-war events or the impact of war on the lives of the human being. There was boredom in the society, there was quite frustration in the society, and brutality as well. My dear students, so because of all these sins and all these problems in the society, so you could see like the novelists of that era, they focused on sex themes a lot in their novels. So I gave you the reasons as well why, because the very accident in their life, that was war. Okay, so due to all those events in their life, so they were engaged in certain sins. So that is why that was the topic of discussion at that time, and you could see sex themes in their novels as well. Okay, the modern novel is not merely an entertainment, not merely a light story meant for after dinner reading. It has evolved as a serious art form. So that at that time, novel was not just used for entertainment, or you could give it a reading after dinner. It was not at all like that. So it is a kind of serious art form, because novelists, they highlighted the issues from the society, the sins, or you can say the faults of that society, and they have depicted them in their novels. Okay, it is compact in body and integrated in form, and everything superfluous is carefully avoided. So my dear students, here like the superficial elements were not present, or you could see like the artificial representation of society was not there. Whatever was there, that is real. Okay, the element of realism you could see over here. Okay, it is like a well-cut garden rather than a tropical jungle. So here, my dear students, you could see like we are using a metaphor over here, that is, this is a well-cut garden for the modern novel, and a tropical jungle, and which is the Victorian novel. Okay, my dear students, here you could see like we are comparing Victorian novel with the tropical jungle, and we are saying like a modern novel is a well-cut garden. Okay, the modern novel is very well constructed, having nothing loose or rambling about it. As Albert points out, Henry James and Conrad evolved techniques which revolutionized the form of the novel. So my dear students, here this is quite a well form of writing novel, and you could not see like anything which was not present there in the novel. So it was a perfect novel, and I gave you an example as well, like as Albert pointed out, Henry James. So here we are talking about a novelist, and the name of the novelist is Henry James, and the other one is Conrad, and they evolved techniques which revolutionized form of the novel. So basically, my dear students, we are not here just talking about about the people who used to follow the Victorian novelist tradition. So here this is a revolutionized word, and time and again we are referring to different novelists who brought revolution in the word of novel. So these are the two names which are very much famous. Okay, basically they amount to be an abandonment of the direct and rather loose biographical method in favor of consideration of pattern and composition, and a new conception of characterization built upon the study of the inner consciousness. So my dear students, here again we are coming towards the inner consciousness. This is like the novels are not just depiction of the outer world or the external world. Basically they focused on the inner consciousness as well. Disproportionate attention is being given to theories of fiction. The novel is now judged by severely aesthetic considerations. Narration, description and style must satisfy high and exacting technical standards. So basically here narration is the art of telling the story, description is how you describe the thing, and style is relevant to writing. My dear students, here you could see like basically they focused on everything and they wanted to make the novels perfect at that time. Moreover, it also embodies the writer's philosophy of life, his message, his view of the human scene. So the element of subjectivity here you could see, like with the passage of time we are moving from a scientific view or the objective view of writing novels toward the subjectivity. Okay, so here we cannot ignore writer's philosophy of life and his message along with his view of the human scene. So my dear students, here again we are coming back to the subjective element of writing a novel. Okay, the stream of consciousness novel, as I told you before as well, that was a very important aspect of the modern era, the stream of consciousness. So how do we apply it into novels? Decay of plot. Edwin Muir is right in pointing out that plot seems to have died out of the 20th century. Stream of consciousness novel. So my dear student, what is basically plot? That is a sequence of different events. So according to Edwin Muir, it was almost died in the 20th century because of stream of consciousness. Okay, my dear students, like the traditional methods of writing novels or dramas you could see in from the medieval ages, like it was based on different scenes or different events of the story. So it was died in the 20th century. Okay, for the Victorian novelists, life easily fell into the mold of a story, but for the novelists of today it refuses to do so. Okay, the great modern novels like Ulysses, as we were talking about Ulysses before, are still stories, but they are stories without an ending. So here this is the characteristic of the modern novel, although they are in form of a story, in form of narration, but a story which doesn't have any end. So this is the characteristic of the modern novel. The modern novel is like an incomplete sentence, and its incompleteness is a reflection of the incompleteness of the whole reign of thought and belief. So here, my dear students, people used to think that their thoughts, their beliefs are incomplete, so that is why they depicted it in their novels as well. So this is a true reflection of their beliefs, of their thoughts. Okay, so my dear students, why the novels are incomplete? So here you will find out the answer as well. Like if you read out modern novels, so you will see like there isn't any proper ending or proper conclusion you could see, as we used to have in the Elizabethan age or in the Victorian period as well. So here this is without ending. Okay, because we are not sure of our future. Okay, we do not know our end in the modern era, so that is why they are incomplete. They do not have any ending. Okay, so in most of the novels you will observe the same thing. Okay, under the influence of new psychological theories, life is not regarded as a continuous flow, but as a series of separate and successive moments. Hence, a novelist like James Joyce or Virginia Woolf concentrates on a particular psychological moment or experience instead of telling a story with an eye on the clock and the calendar. He probes deeper and deeper into the human consciousness and moves freely backward and forward in time. The unities of time and place have no meaning or significance for them. So my dear students, here I have pointed out two novelists for you. One is James Joyce and the other one is Virginia Woolf. So here you could see like they concentrated on a particular psychological moment or experience. So basically their focus was on psychology and the experiences of human beings rather than on place and time. Okay, here I mentioned like instead of keeping an eye on the clock and the calendar, they probe deeper and deeper into the human consciousness and moves freely backward and forward in time. So my dear students, here they were not just restricted to time and calendar of that time. Basically their aim was to go deeper into the human consciousness. So my dear students, what is there in human mind, that is very much important for Virginia Woolf and for James Joyce as well. Okay, just as a story, so also the character has decayed in the modern novel. So previously we were talking about the decay of the plot, there wasn't any sequence of different events in the story. So my dear students, here we are not following any method of characterization as well. So let me give you an example of the previous methods of characterization. There were two different methods. Okay, so they were used in order to delineate the character. The method of direct narration, it means like you are telling your reader about the character directly. The other one is the dramatic method, when the character himself tells the story, or you can say the characteristics of his or her personality to the audience. So this is known as dramatic method. More often than not, there was a combination of both these methods. So basically sometimes it was writer who used to present the characters. Sometimes the character himself used to present himself in front of the audience. So basically these are the two methods which were being used previously. Okay, the externals of personality, the habits, manners, physical appearance. So basically these are about your habits, and this is all about your physical appearance or your external appearance. All right, were vividly and graphically described, and further light was thrown on the nature of the character by his own words. So my dear students, again a dramatic method, the description of personality of the character by himself and actions and by what others said of him. So basically this is characterization was being done in this way previously. Here we are on the modern novel, so I'll tell you how characterization was followed over here in the modern era. All right, but the modern novelist rejects such characterization as superficial. He has realized that it is impossible to give a psychologically true account of character by such means. He probes deep into the subconscious, even the unconscious, and loses himself in the complexities and subtleties of inner life. Instead of depicting a conflict between different personalities, he depicts the individual at war with himself. He is not concerned with an overt strife, but with the conflict that goes on in the subconscious reign of the human mind. So basically, according to the modern novelist, it was not at all difficult to describe the character. So by keeping in view his physical appearance, or to know about his habits, or his own way of telling about himself to the audience. So my dear student, it was not possible according to the modern novelist. Okay, so here basically they try to highlight the subconscious part of human beings and unconsciousness as well. So my dear students, according to them, it is not an easy task to go into the psychology of the human beings and then tell about them. Okay, so same is the case with the characterization over here. Okay, my dear students, here you could see in this slide as well, it depicts the individual at war with himself. This is a war of individual with himself within his mind. So this is very much important point you could see in the modern era. Okay, so here my dear students, we are talking about the novelists of the modern era. Okay, so here there is a conflict going on within the mind of human beings. So according to that, you can depict any kind of character, or you can talk about that very character. Okay, a character is sketched not by extension but by probing the depths. Okay, so this is not only talking about the physical appearance of a character. So you can sketch a character, so definitely you'll have to go into the depth. Okay, character is thus presented outside time and space. Not only are we given the past of a character, but also the possibilities of his nature for the future are revealed. So my dear students, here you could see while depicting a character, while presenting a character, so here we are keeping in view past and future as well. So here we are not analyzing a character on the basis of his past experiences only, but we'll have to reveal his future out of his experiences. Okay, This psychological probing into the depth of human nature has been the depth of both the hero and the villain in the traditional sense. So previously there was a villain, there was a hero. So now it is totally in the hands of the readers, like if they want to give any kind of attribute, to the villain or to the hero. So definitely it is a reader's choice to choose who is basically the hero or, the villain of the novel, okay? Just as no man is a hero to his own personal attendant, so also no man can be a hero of a psychoanalyst. The heroism of a man dissolves when we come too close to him, and this is equally true of the villainy of a villain. However, we may here add that in the novelists like Conrad, much that is largely traditional, both in plot and characterization, possess side by side with much that is new and unconventional. So my dear students, here when you talk about the novels which are written by Conrad, so here you'll see the mixture of both conventional and unconventional heroes over there in his novels, okay? So this is the characteristics of his novels over here, okay? As the foregoing discussion has already indicated that modern novel is predominantly psychological. So here, my dear students, our focus is on the psychology of the human beings in the modern era, alright? It was in the early years of the 20th century that Freud and Jung shook the foundations of human thought by their revolutionary discoveries in the field of psychology. Basically, these are the names of two psychologists who gave certain theories relevant to psychology, okay? They reveal that human consciousness has very deep layers and buried under the consciousness. So basically here, my dear students, according to these two psychologists, you could see like they are giving conscious that is buried under subconscious and unconscious. So for the very first time you could see like we are analyzing the psychology of the novelists over here and of all the characters here. So we give much importance to psychological elements of the characters and of the novelists as well in the modern era as compared to the external factors, alright? Thoughts buried deep in the consciousness and the subconscious constantly keep coming to the surface, and an account of a human personality cannot be completed and satisfactory unless these hidden elements are given their due weight. So my dear students, here you could see the importance of psychological elements as far as the characterization is concerned. These are very much important. So you could see over there, so you could see over here. Novelists like Henry James, Joseph Conrad, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Dorothy Richardson, Elizabeth Bowman have made the English novel extremely psychological in nature. So my dear students, these are the names of some of the novelists of the modern era. So they made all the novels psychological, okay, because they focused on the psychology of human beings a lot, okay. The impact of the new psychology on plot and character has already been noticed so far. Its impact has been equally far-reaching on the theme of the novels as well. So previously we were talking about the sequence of the events in the novel plus characterization. So here we are moving towards themes, like how far like these psychological elements they affected themes in the modern era as well of the novels. The traditional novel was largely social, its aim being to uphold and recognize social values. But in the modern age, there are no such universally acknowledged values of social conduct which the individual must uphold and cherish. So previously, the focus was on the social values was on the society, but here we are going to talk about another new dimension that is not universally acknowledged, okay. Hence it is that there is a shift in the theme of the modern novelist. The individual is more important for him than society. So my dear students, here you could see for a novelist in the modern era, for him, individual is more important as compared to societies. Previously in the Victorian age, you could see like they were following the tradition of writing the novels about society. So here this is entirely a new approach in writing novel, because of the psychological factors which are involved in determining a personality in the way of characterization and the formulation of a plot. So here you could see in the theme psychology is also very much important. So basically that is the basic sense of the novels in the modern era, okay. The psychological probings into the subconscious reveal that every individual has a separate personality peculiar to him, and that one particular personality can never merge or become one with another. Each individual is a lonely soul, and as David Ditches puts it, the theme of the modern novelist is not the relationship between gentility and morality, but the relationship between loneliness and love. So my dear students, previously our focus was on gentility and morality. So here you could see in the modern novels, like the themes are based on the relationship between loneliness and love. So this is like when we bring psychology here in the novel, so definitely these are the elements of psychology you could see over here. Okay, as you know, David Ditches also pointed out in his book as well, the same thing, like the modern novel focused on the loneliness and love instead of giving more importance to gentility and morality, as that was the tradition before the modern era. Okay, the novelist today is not concerned with the great society, that for example society at large, but with the achievement of a little society which can be achieved, if at all, only through great patience and care. So my dear students, previously, like novelists, they try to cover all the aspects of the society as a whole. My dear students, here you could see like this is a little society. The novelists, they focused on the little society in the modern era. Both Lawrence and Foster, so again these two novelists, consider the great society as the enemy of the individual and want it to be reformed. So basically the great society, the larger society, the big society, they used to consider it as the enemy of the individual, okay, and it should be reformed as well. Okay, Conrad's chief personages are all lonely souls. Okay, Conrad's chief personages are all lonely souls and betrayal of one's own self or of others in the major themes of his novel. So basically the major themes of his novel and all, you know, characters in his novel, they are the lonely souls. Okay, why? Because due to giving more importance to the psychology of the human beings here, right? Such are the current and cross currents in the modern English novel. It is an extremely vital and living form of art, and we can safely predict a bright and glorious future for it. New influences, especially the Russian and the American, are daily widening its horizons and renewing its vigor and vitality. So basically here you could see the impact of Russian and American novelists as well on the modern novel. Okay, so the things which were going on there in Russia and in America, so basically those had very strong influence on the modern novel. Okay, so here you could see like a novel is extremely you can say a vital and living form of art, and we can safely predict a bright and glorious future for it. So that is why here you could see like by focusing on the psychology of the human beings, by giving more importance to the individual. So you could see over here like they are of the opinion that novel has a very bright future, right? New experiments are being conducted in novels, some temporary and fleeting, others of a more permanent significance. The caravan of the English novel goes on, ever changing, becoming and growing. Okay, so my dear students, here you can see a lot of variety here in the English novels in the modern era. So you could see over here, and some experiments, those were very temporary, some were, you know, of permanent importance as well. So this is basically a caravan of English novel that goes on, and this is with the certain changes in that, and it is you know, growing as well with the passage of time. So here, my dear students, you could see the rich variety of you know, novels in the modern era. So basically we focused on, you know, novel as a whole in the modern era. All right, so dear students, so far that was an introduction to the modern novel. We are going to talk about some of the major modern novelists of that era. Okay, as you know that was an age of science and technology, of you can say the scientific advancements were on the top. So people, they were facing a quite kind of inferiority complex at that time. Okay, so we'll see the depiction of that inferiority complex plus the complexity of the modern era in the modern novel over here. Okay, so first of all, a very well-known figure among the modern novelists is you know, H.G. Wells. Okay, So basically he is among the writers of 20th century. Herbert George Wells, this is the complete name of this writer, was the greatest revolutionary, and like Bernard Shaw, he exerted a tremendous influence on the minds of his contemporaries. So my dear students, here basically we are talking about H.G. Wells with reference to George Bernard Shaw over here. He was a dramatist, and H.G. Wells, he is a novelist. So basically he is a kind of a novelist who left a long-term influence on the minds of his contemporaries. So there were many other novelists who used to follow this person. Okay. Wells was the first English novelist who had a predominantly scientific training and who was profoundly antagonist to the classics. He insisted that classical humanism should be discarded in favor of science, and that biology and world history should take the place of Latin and Greek. So my dear students, let me underline a few things from this slide. You could see over here, like this is basically, he was basically an antagonist, okay, to the classics, and he was the first English novelist who was predominantly trained for the scientific inventions. Okay. And then another thing, like he insisted that classical humanism should be discarded in favor of science. Okay. And instead of using classical humanism in your writings, you should go for using biology and world history. So basically this was his philosophy. So my dear students, here you can see he was a great opponent of the classical thoughts. Okay, so he was of the view that instead of using Greek and Latin doctrines of writing novels, we should go for an entirely new approach, and we should mix science plus you can say the technological advancements in novels. Okay, novels should not just be restricted to the social life of human beings. Here there must be elements of biology and of world history as such present in the works of the novelist. So basically this was his point of view, my dear students. So we are talking about the modern novelist. So my dear students, as you could see that this is an era of scientific advancement. So with the passage of time, you could see like previously during the classical ages, you can say during the 19th century literature, that is also known as the Victorian era, plus the Romantic age literature. So you could see at that time people, they used to write about the social issues of the society, about their domestic life a lot. So here he is of the view that there must be a space for the scientific advancements in literature. Okay, so your literature must be a true reflection of those advancements. Okay, so basically he was promoting science here in literature. The novels of Wells fall into three divisions. First, he wrote the scientific romances. Next, he tried to hand on the domestic novels with this emphasis on character and humor. And then, when he had gained sufficient fame as a writer, he wrote a series of sociological novels in which he showed his concern with the fate of humanity as a whole. So, dear students, some of the points which are important from this slide, like his novels fall into three categories. One is that of the scientific romance, okay, and the other one, he tried to write novels on the domestic issues, okay. And but those are not, you can say, the typical domestic issues were not addressed as such in his novels. When we talk about you can say his creativity in the novel, so basically he emphasized on different characters and humor. So basically he tried to focus to emphasize on different characters and humorous elements in his domestic novels. Okay, the other one is the other kind of novel he used to produce, that is of sociological novels, okay, and you can say where he addressed the fate of humanity as a whole. So my dear students, you can see a variety of you can say themes which are present in H.G. Wells novels over here. Okay, we talk about scientific romances plus the domestic novels plus the fate of humanity as a whole. So here you can see like his emphasis in the last part is on the divine power, on the spiritual forces which are involved in you can say describing the fate of human beings. And he also told about these novels, and he called them the sociological novels. Okay, so as a writer of scientific romances, the very first category of his novels, Wells stands unrivaled. They are masterpieces of imaginative power. He looks at life on earth from a high level of projecting himself to a distant standpoint, to the moon, the future, the air, or another planet. So my dear students, when we talk about the scientific romances over here, like about H.G. Wells, so basically these are his masterpieces as well. Okay, so he talked about a future in his novels a lot. Okay, so basically he talks about his journey to moon, then about future, about air, and about another planet. So these are, you can say, his mysterious thoughts. Okay, so my dear students, his assumptions as well about future, which you can see in his novels, those are the scientific romances. Okay, so my dear students, you could see like in these kind of romances, his imaginative power is very much strong. So this is not a task of an ordinary writer to capture the future moments, what would happen in future. So in this way we can say like he is a very great novelist in the history of English literature. Okay, in these romances, Wells has shown an extraordinary ability to look into the future, and many of his predictions have proved to be true. So with the passage of time, like man reached on moon, so you could see like his predictions were true with the passage of time. Okay, his first scientific romance was The Time Machine, in which the hero invents a time machine which enables him to accelerate the time consciousness and project himself into the future. Okay, so dear students, basically here this is a discussion on the time machine. So you can see like the hero of this novel, he invents a time machine and he enables himself to accelerate the time consciousness and project himself according to the time, and you can say according to the requirements of the future age. Okay, he is also described in a most vivid manner the grim picture of the earth divided between a master race and their resentful serfs, the Marlocks belonging to sub-race. So my dear students, here basically this novel talked about his assumptions about future, what will happen in near and far future. So with the passage of time, like you could see many of his assumptions were true. Okay, so he talked about different races on the earth. Okay, and which one is the master race, he talked about this one as well, and he tried to give a grim picture of the earth that is divided between a master race and other resentful serfs. Okay, so dear students, this is all about his novel The Time Machine. His next work, The War of the Worlds, that were published in 1898, deals with the theme of the invasion of the earth by the people living on the planet Mars. So here this is you can say is another scientific romance, okay, where he talks about the planet Mars. They spread destruction by the use of a death ray, but they are ultimately defeated on account of their lack of immunity from bacteria. In this way the earth is saved. The other scientific romances written by Wells were The Island of Dr. Moreau, When the Sleeper Wakes, The First Man in the Moon, and The Food of the Gods. Okay, so dear students, basically here you can see like he talks about different diseases as well, like the immunity system of human beings here in this novel, The War of the Worlds. Okay, so these were the most exciting scientific thrillers which ever appeared in English fiction. and in them Wells anticipated various forms of warfare, including the atom bomb. So my dear students, that is why these are known as the scientific romances. There is basically a romantic story behind these novels as well, but the basic theme of these novels is relevant to the scientific invention. So here you could see, like, he talks about the atom bomb, he talks about the new world, and you can say about different diseases in his novel. That is why these are known as the scientific romance. So here on this slide you can see some of his eminent works. Okay, from fantastic romances, Wells then turned to domestic fiction. So when we categorized his works into three different categories, so this is another category. Okay, he was thoroughly familiar with the life in London suburbs, which he described with the enthusiasm in eclipsed, that was published in 1905, a comedy of class instincts. The hero, here we are talking about the hero eclipsed, rises from the position of a draper's assistant to a man of fortune. The high society accepts him and trains him in its culture, but eclipsed feels relieved only when he loses his fortune and relapses to the lower class from where he rose. This novel is full of satire and humor typical of Wells. So my dear student, this is a description of his one more novel. The name of the novel is eclipsed, like how he belonged to the lower class of the society, and later on like with his fortune he went to, you can say, the upper class of the society, and the people over there, they trained him and they accepted him as well, but you can say he lost his identity over there and he went back to his you can say the class from where he rose. Okay, so here you can say this is basically a satire on the contemporary society of that time, and that is written in a humorous way. That is very much typical you can say style of Wells. Okay, in Tono Bungay, Wells gives a most remarkable picture of the disintegration of English society in the later 19th century and the advent of a new rich class. So dear students, basically this is a description of the later 19th century and the advent of the new rich class. In Anna Veronica, that was published in 1909, the same year when he published Tono Bungay, which is the full-length study of a modern young women. So basically this story revolves against a women. Okay, there is the first attempt in English fiction at a frank and open treatment of sex relationship. So basically this is you can say the theme of that novel. In Love and Mrs. Levisham, that was published in 1910, and The History of Mr. Polly, published in the same year, Wells gives us realistic, humorous and sympathetic studies of the lower middle class life with which he was quite familiar. So my dear students, when we talk about you know, his domestic novels, so here you can see some of the eminent works which he wrote during the modern era. So my dear students, by keeping in view the you know our focus on the lower middle class of the society, we can analyze his works in a better way. Okay, so basically this is quite a realistic and humorous picture of that society as well. Okay, so my dear student, we can say like Wells was quite familiar with the trends of the lower middle class society. So that was really very much, you can say, fascinating for him to depict that society in his novels. Okay, another eminent figure as far as the novelists of the modern era are concerned, so his name is Arnold Bennett. So unlike Wells, Bennett was more concerned with the craft of fiction and was not disposed to preach in his novels. Okay, so basically he focused on the craft of fiction. That is why during his time he was the most popular novelist. He looked at the world as a spectacle and recorded in his novels his impressions with complete detachment. Following the example of French novelists like Maupassant, Flaubert and Balzac, he aimed at recording life, its delights, indignities and distresses without conscious intrusion of his own personality between the record and the reader. So basically he tried to highlight you can say the fictional elements of the society in his works. So basically he talked about the French tradition of writing the novel. So he imitated the style of different French writers as well. So you could see their names here on the slide. So basically he aimed at recording life, so he talked about the delights of life, indignities of life, and distresses of life as well. So here you can see like this is his conscious effort of putting, or you can say portraying the contemporary society in his novels. Okay. Bennett wrote 3 most popular novels. So the names of the novels are The Old Wives' Tale, that was published in 1908, Clay Hanger 1910, and Realism and Steps, that was published in 1923, which place him high among English novelists. His other novels are Buried Alive, that was published in 1908, and The Card, published in 1911, which are 4 straight humorous character novels, and The Grand Babylon Hotel, which was published in 1902, which provides good entertainment. So basically these are his entertaining you can say novels as well. So we talked about his you can say 3 most popular novels in you can say first 3 lines. One is The Old Wives' Tale, the other one is Clay Hanger, and the third one is Realism and Steps. Okay, so my dear students, you could see like he was a novelist who portrayed the society of that time in true manners in his novels. Okay, so basically his novels are a combination of satire and humor. Okay. In all these novels, the characters spend most of their time in the small area of the 5 towns. So this is the typical story of usually all of his novels. The Staffordshire poultry town. The readers become familiar not only with the principal streets and buildings and landmarks, but also with the men and women who walk the streets. So basically this is his style of portraying you can say the men and women of the society in a way like the readers, they get to know about the towns and cities along with you can say different roads and places of that particular city. Okay. By an accumulation of carefully chosen details, Bennett gives a lifelike quality to his novels. So basically his novels are quite realistic. So with his description of you can say cities and different towns, you could see like the story is quite based on the real life. Okay. Though ugliness and coarseness are also presented in that otherwise pleasant picture, they however make it more true to real life. So my dear students, he tried to highlight the ugly aspects of the society as well, so that those aspects make his novels more true and closer to the real life as well. Okay. Henry James, another eminent figure among the modern era novelists. Okay, so he is one of the more important of elder novelists. He was an American naturalized in England. It was perhaps because of his foreign origin that Henry James was untouched by the pessimism of the age, whereas almost all his contemporaries who tried to investigate the human mind showed unmistakable signs of depression. Basically, my dear student, the modern age is an age of depression, an age of anxiety. So basically, he was from America, so you could not find the elements of depression, of anxiety, of nervousness, of inferiority complex in his novels a lot. Moreover, his characters have no background and they move from country to country. The emphasis is more on their mental and emotional reactions. So basically, when we talk about the characters of his novel, so you could see that they do not have any background as such. They move from country to country, and basically our focus here is on their mental and emotional reactions. So in order to understand, you can say, the psychology of the people of that society, so he portrayed different characters in his novels in this way. In his earlier novels such as The Europeans, that was published in 1879, Henry James is chiefly concerned with the clash between the American and European mind. In his next important novel, that was What Maisie Knew, was published in 1897. He gives us an exquisitely delightful picture of the young American girls brought up in the sentimental Victorian surroundings and introduced to a modern society entirely devoid of sentiment. So basically, Victorian society is considered as a society of sentiment, or you can say of human emotions. They were very much present. So here you can see, like in his most important novel, that is What Maisie Knew. This is basically a picture of young American girls. Okay, so the story is about those girls. Okay, like the way they are representing the Victorian societies, and they entered into the modern era where there are no sentiments, no emotion. That is, you can say, the life of science and technology only. His later novels also deal with similar simple situations, pregnant with the most complex psychological effects. For example, his novel The Golden Bowl was published in 1905, deals with the interaction of 5 characters: the American millionaire and his daughter, the Italian noble whom she marries, her penniless friend who has a love affair with the Italian, and an elderly friend of both girls. So basically, you can see the depiction of the American society in almost all of his works as well. So here this is a discussion on his novel The Golden Bowl. Okay, it is the psychological complication both before and after the wedding of the friends and the father which provide the whole material of the story. Everything is narrated in a quiet undertone, and it is the nobility and decency which all the characters preserve in their behavior, which gives a unity to the novel. The love for antique beautiful things which the American millionaire exhibits in his character is the theme of Henry James' 2 other novels, The Spoils of Poynton and The Sense of the Past. So my dear students, here you can see, like this story is about an American millionaire. So his other 2 novels are also based on on the same theme, okay, as well. So here you could see the whole story in a nutshell of some of his novels as well, the basic theme of his 3 novels. Okay. Another prominent figure among the modern era novelists is James Joyce. He is very much popular even today. He was a novelist of unique and extraordinary genius. He was born in Dublin, but he left Ireland in 1904 to become a European cosmopolitan. Most of his life was spent in retirement in Paris. He was a highly gifted man and was acutely responsive to observe details. By temperament, he was an artist and symbolist. He found around him an atmosphere of frustration, aimlessness, and disintegration. And thus, in order to express himself as a novelist, he had to create for himself a different medium. So my dear students, he was, you can say, a very famous author. So this is about his life history, like he was born in Dublin, but he left Ireland in 1904. Okay, so what was basically the reason? Okay, so here you can see, like most of his life he spent in Paris, and that was after his retirement. Okay, so you could see he was an artist and a symbolist as well. So here you could see, like he was also one of the victims of the modern era. So the way he presented the aimlessness and disintegration of life in his novel, that is an extraordinary work done by him. The important novels of Joyce are The Dubliner, that was published in 1904, A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man, published in 1916, Exiles 1918, and Ulysses. Okay, of these, Ulysses is his masterpiece. So you can say we will talk about Ulysses now. In all these novels, Joyce makes a study of the artist who frees himself from various shackles and ultimately comes to the realization of his own true personality. So my dear students, here basically the focus is on the self-actualization concept. Okay, in Ulysses, the artist is shown at one where the humanity through insight into the psychology of speech, our most intimate faculty in which all men share and have shared. This book is presented as an epic, the counterpart of Homer's Odyssey. So this is basically a counterpart of you can say Homer. The name of his work is Odyssey. So Ulysses is just a part of that one. Okay. So my dear students, here he wanted to know about the psychology of human beings, in order to know about the complications which are inside the minds of human beings. So he wrote these novels. Okay. So basically he talked about another thing, that is you can say psychology of speech. Okay, that is the intimate faculty. So basically he focused on all these aspects, the psychological factors which are involved there in characterization. He depicted all those things in his novels. Okay, another you can say very important figure during the modern era is Virginia Woolf. Okay, so who was the most distinguished women writer of her generation, made a far more exciting use of the stream of consciousness. So my dear students, here basically we are talking about the stream of consciousness, a concept which was introduced during the modern era. So basically she was quite successful in using this technique as compared to James Joyce. Okay, she was greatly impressed by Ulysses, writing by James Joyce, in which Joyce had found an alternative to the well-made plot and external characterization. She found that this conception of the inner drama of the mind was fraught with tremendous possibilities, and she decided to exploit it to the fullest extent. So my dear students, here you can see the conception of the inner drama of the mind, what is basically happening in the mind of the human being. That is the core theme of Ulysses, that is written by James Joyce. Okay, so here Virginia Woolf was very much impressed by this work. Okay. In her first novel, The Voyage Out, that was published in 1930, Virginia Woolf followed the traditional pattern of storytelling. Here she relates the story of a young and inexperienced girl who comes to learn something of life and the relations between the sexes, falls in love and dies of tropical fever before she can realize herself. But the real interest in the novel centers on a vague awareness that there is a meaning in life. So your life is not meaningless. So that is, you can say, depicted in The Voyage Out. Okay, that is her first novel. So her second novel, Night and Day, was published in 1990. So it offers an elaborate, long drawn out study of Catherine Helbery, an intelligent young woman of the middle class, and her relation with her mother and four friends. So basically this is, you can say, this story is about a girl and her relationship with her mother and her friends. Okay, but the main interest lies not on the theme of love, but on the conversations and introspection in which the chief characters are engaged, and which gradually reveal their doubts and hesitations as they face the reality of experience. So my dear students, this is not basically about the love of that young lady with her mother or friends. This is based on, you know, the conversations and introspections of, you can say, the novel. Okay, this is basically about the characterization and introspections of the chief characters. Okay, so the way they are engaged in the conversation, and gradually it reveals, you can say, their doubts and hesitations as they face the reality of experience. So with the passage of time, when they experience something, so definitely they'll have to come up with certain doubts. So basically this is the theme of his novel, Night and Day. Her next novel, Jacob's Room, was published in 1922, represents her first serious experiment, the stream of consciousness technique. Here she makes an attempt to construct pictorially the personality of a young Englishman from his infancy to the age of 26, when he is killed in the war. Here the sunlit streams of youth are overshadowed by time, frustration and death, and fires of love are quenched by human faithlessness. In this novel, Virginia Woolf's quest for the meaning of human experience goes on, but the mystery is not yet solved. So this is a kind of mysterious novel. The name of the novel is Jacob's Rooms. This is a story of a person, and she started her life from infancy, and then later on, like at the age of 26, he was killed in the war. So everything, whatever is there, like human faithlessness is there, like the fires of love are also there, and the theme of frustration, and that is also there in her novel. Okay, frustration and the theme of death is there in her novel. Virginia Woolf's most successful novel is The New Stream of Consciousness. Method is to the Lighthouse. So this is basically her masterpiece. Here the scene is set on an unnamed island, and the lighthouse symbolizes in some clear way the reality which is never experienced. Her next novel, Orlando, which is liveliest of all, relates in a series of vivid scenes and dramatic climaxes the mental experiences of a poet while writing a prose poem. So my dear students, here this is a description of his two novels. One is To the Lighthouse and the other one is Orlando. Okay, so here like the way she depicted you can say the unnamed island there, okay, and you can say the reality of the society there in her novel, that is really remarkable. Okay, In the Year, this is another novel written by Virginia Woolf. So in that novel, she returned to a much simpler form of fiction. It is the novel of the generations in which the fortunes of a middle-class family from 1880 to the present time are rather sketchily represented. Her last novel, Between the Acts, is filled with a sense of her personal failure to wrest meaning from experiences, and the spectacle of the world at war deepens the despair. So my dear students, this is the description of his two more novels. One is The Years and the other one is Between the Acts. Okay, so here you can see like how she talked about the personal failures in the later novel, and the first one is about middle class family. Okay, so basically these are some of the points from her novels over here. Okay, so my dear students, you could see like we had a discussion on the novelists of the modern era as well. So we talked about some of the eminent writers of that time. So my dear students, that was all about the lecture today. You could see like we took a start from the Victorian era, like we drew a comparison of Victorian novel and the modern novel, and then I told you how modern novel was different from the Victorian novel, and the traditions, some of the novelists, they used to follow the same traditions of the Victorian novelists as well, and then we discussed some of the novelists. Fine, so what were basically their theme and way of formulating the plot and the themes which were very much common during the modern era in the history of English literature. So that was all about today. The rest of the information or the detailed description of all the works by different novelists, you can have a look on the book A Critical History of English Literature by David Ditches, or A Critical History of English Literature by Dr. Molek. Okay, so my dear students, see you again with another topic in the history of English literature. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.